to this channel. Um, we are going to be seeing the terms that are associated with flower, with plant reproduction generally. So we are going to be going from the formation of the male and female reproductive um, cells of the plant, the seed pollination, the seed formation, formation of fruits, and of course the seed itself, the germination of seed, and all those terms like that. We're going to cover about 88 terms here. We're going to cover about 88 terms. So do what to stick to the end of this video. Now let's go already into the terms. Now the first one we're going to be seeing here is the anther. Now, anther is coined from a Greek term that means antheros, and that's what I'm going to be helping us to do in this video. I'm going to be covering the root words of all of these, most of these words. Is that okay? That I know, of course. So, anther is going from the word antheros, and it means blooming. So, the way we define pollination, the process of pollination is that it is the transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma. So, it means that the anther contains the pollen. The anther or houses the pollen or pollen grains. Is that okay? So how does it now disperse it? It dehisces. Is that okay? To dehisce is a Greek word that means to burst open or break open. So it dehisces to release the pollen. So by the time it dehisces, the pollen gets out of it and goes to the stigma according to the definition of pollen grain. So you can see here, this guy labeled, this guy here, this yellow guy here is going to be the anther of this flower. Okay, then the next one is the stigma, and the stigma, of course, is the part of the pistil where pollen germinates. So the the anther is going to be transferred to the stigma. Now, don't mind my flower here. The anther is supposed to actually be on a different stalk here that shows the filament, but my image is quite wrong. So there's supposed to be some stalks here appearing here, like this, appearing here. So on this is where we're supposed to have our anther, basically. So this is going to be our anther. Then this will now be our, so this will be our anther. This will be our anther. And this will be the anther. These two guys. So these stalks that bear the anther up will be called the filament. So the diagram here, this diagram is not exactly accurate. So, but this is the way it is. So this anther and the filament together form the stamen. So while this other one, the stigma and the style and the ovary, the stigma, the style, and ovary, the three of them form the pistil or the carpel. Is that okay? Form the carpel. Now, we also have another name for them, which is the androecium and gynoecium. But you're going to see that in the in other slides. Okay, so we have the style. The style is just a slender stalk that connects the stigma to the ovary. That's its word. This stalk connects the stigma to the ovary. Here's the ovary. So that is what the stigma is. So the style basically holds the stigma in place. Is that okay? And it connects it to the ovary. And it is through the style that the pollen tube grows. It is through the style that the pollen tube grows. Now, I've gone through an overview on the fertilization. So I'll link the video in the description so that you can watch that video. It's a very short video that explains everything that you just need to know from pollination to fertilization. All right, now, then there is the ovary, which is basically an enlarged basal portion of the pistil. Is an enlarged basal portion of the pistil. So the ovary is basically this portion of the pistil that is larger. Do you understand how you can see it's larger here? Pistil comes from here. Pistil comes from here. So it typically looks like this. So this is going to be your stigma, then your filaments are going to arise from here, on which you see your anthers, the anthers. Is that okay? So this place is the stigma, then this place is the ovary. Now this guy, ovary, houses what we call the ovules. It houses the ovules. This diagram is wrong here. It actually houses the ovules. Now, and it is the ovary that becomes the fruit after fertilization. This guy turns to fruits after fertilization. Don't forget that the ovary turns to the fruit, while the oval becomes seed, and ovary becomes fruit after fertilization. All right. An oval is a structure within the ovary that develops into seed after fertilization. So I've mentioned that. Now the filament is the stalk that holds the or that supports the anther in the flower. So the stalk that supports the anther is called the filament, while the one that supports the the other guy that supports the stigma is called the style. Now, the sepal is the protective leaf-like part the that encloses a flower bud. Now, you see, the in this plant, a fully grown plant, this this green guy here is called the sepal, not the petal. It's called the sepal, and these red walls are called the petals. Are called the petals. Now, the oval is this inner portion here. So that is the oval. Now, the sepal, I said, is this green part, and the receptacle is this base here. The receptacle. Okay? Now, there's something about this, guys. I said that the sepal is the protective leaf-like part that encloses the flower bud. Now, the thing is this, when the flower grows and becomes mature, the function of the sepal becomes almost redundant. Only that um, in most flower, it is still used for the process of photosynthesis. It is still used to photosynthesize because, of course, it's green. Is that okay? So it means that it is abundant in chlorophyllous cells. So it is used for photosynthesis. Uh, but it had a major role in the initial in the early life of the flower, which was to protect the young flower, which was then a bud. Now the petal is this part, the colorful part, this colorful reddish part of the flower that attract pollinators, especially insects. Is that okay? When you see that it is attractive, it is colored brightly, and the holes are large. They are wide and large sizes. The petals, I mean now, they are you know it means it is an insect pollinated flower, an insect pollinated flower. Now, there's something about the petals too. Now, when the petals have partially fused holes, that is the the petals are fused together partially, or they are fused together completely. Is that okay? That is, there's partial fusion of the petals, and there's also complete fusion of the petals. Now, that condition is called gamosepalous. Gamopetalous, I'm sorry. Gamopetalous. Because we have gamosepalous will be what? The word gami. Let me start from that. Gamo first. Gamopetalous. Now the word gami means marriage. Whenever you hear the word gami, it means marriage. So so you hear words like monogamy and all that. So this gami means marriage. So gamo petalous, that is fused, partially fused, or completely or wholly fused together. Is that okay? So, and it is fused in such a way that the corolla will now take the form of a tube. Is that okay? The corolla will take the form of a tube. The corolla is just talking about the petals together. We call we call the the petals the many of them together, call them the corolla. So it will now appear to appear as a form of a tube or sometimes trumpet-like. Is that okay? If you look at it, you see it's projecting outward like this. It's looking like a funnel. Like a funnel. Okay. So I said um, sepals. So when they are fused together, they are called gamosepalous. Okay. Now the next thing is the pistil or carpel. Now the pistil is basically the female reproductive part of the flower, consisting of the stigma, style, and ovary (SSO). So this portion here, what I drew here the other time. So this whole thing here, we have the stigma here, the style that holds the stigma or connects the stigma to this portion, which is the ovary. All of these three are together called the carpel or the pistil. Okay. Now, we have the stamen. The stamen is basically the male reproductive part, which consists of the anthers and the filament. Remember the anthers, I said they are going to grow out like this. This filament that holds the anthers in place. Remember the anthers house the pollen grains. So that is what we have. The anthers are are held by the filaments. So together they are called the stamen. Is that okay? They're called the stamen or the androecium. Androecium. You see, whenever you hear the word andro refers to male. Is that okay? Andro refers to male. Um, you know, androecium. In fact, the word ecium also talks about egg. Is that okay? It talks about egg. Now, um, the next one is the pollen grain. Okay. Then for the female, the pistil, I didn't mention that. I forgot to mention that. That is called the gynoecium. Whenever I hear the word gene, is that okay? You've heard gynecologist before. Gynecologist is the female of a doctor of a female. Is that okay? So gynoecium is the part so that's another name for the pistil or carpel. All right. So we said the pollen grain is basically those microscopic structures that are produced in the anther and they contain the male gamete of seed plants. They contain the male gamete of seed plants. The pollen grains are microscopic structures that contain the male gamete of seed plants. So they will be found inside the anther. They are found inside of the anther. Then we have the pollen tube. Now you see, the pollen tube is the structure that a tube that is formed after the pollen has landed on the stigma. It will now begin to grow toward the ovary to deliver sperm. Okay, now it delivers the sperm to the into the embryo sac, to the egg cell, and of course the polar nuclei. Now you see what happens here is that once the pollen grain lands on the stigma, then it begins to absorb water. It absorbs water and nutrients. So by the time it has absorbed water and nutrients, it is able to, begin to grow and germinate towards the the ovule. It begins to germinate towards the oval. By the time it enters into the oval, it enters through where we call the micropyle. We're going to see all of that. We're going to see all of that. Now, there's something called the tube nucleus. Now, the tube nucleus is the one that controls the growth of the pollen tube. It controls the growth of the pollen tube, the tube nucleus. And how does it do that? Now, the embryo sac actually secretes an hormone called the synergid. Now, the synergid hormone is what assists, hormones are chemical signals, they're chemicals basically. Synergids. I said hormones are chemicals. So these chemical signals are what the tube nucleus will follow. So that's why it's able to not miss its way and it's able to know where and what direction to actually grow to meet the egg that it wants to fertilize. Is that okay? So that's why the tube nucleus always leads the growth of the pollen tube. Don't forget that. The tube nucleus, this guy always leads the growth, leads the pollen tube. And how does he lead it? Because of the hormones that are secreted by the embryo sac, which is the synergid. These are the synergies that they help to, control the direction in which the pollen tube will grow towards. Pollen tube, rather. Okay. All right. So that is what the pollen tube is. It controls the growth of the pollen, the tube nucleus rather controls the growth of the pollen tube. The next one is the generative nucleus. Now, there are two types of nucleus in a pollen grain. So these are anther, these are filament here, these are anther. The pollen grains are microscopic. So let me enlarge one for us now. Now I've enlarged one of the pollen grains now. This pollen grain here is going to contain two types of cells. We have the generative, two types of nucleus. We have generative nucleus and the tube nucleus. Now, the generative nucleus is the one that always divides to form, it divides first. Remember that it divides mitotically, and that is divided by mitosis. Then that it also forms two sperm nuclei, two sperm nuclei here, or sperm cells. Is that okay? Two nuclei or cells. Two sperm nuclei or sperm cells. Why we call it nuclei is because the nuclei is one of the most prominent portions of the cell. So that's why we're just using the word. That's why the word nuclei is used for it. Okay. So it divides to form. I wrote here that it divides to form two sperm cells for fertilization. So remember that the two sperm cells, that's why the fertilization that takes place in plants is called double fertilization in flowering plants, and it is unique to them. It is unique to flowering plants. Then we have the sperm cells. The sperm cells are the male gametes involved in fertilization. They are the male gametes involved in fertilization. And where are they? They are gotten from the what? They are gotten from the generative nucleus. The generative nucleus splits into the what? The sperm cells. Don't forget that. Then the tube nucleus leads the pollen tube. The next one is the egg cell. The egg cell is the female gamete that you find within the ovule. So inside this ovule, you are going to find the egg nucleus. Look at the egg nucleus there. Okay. And of course, so this place here is called the micropyle. It's called the micropyle. That is where it is through the micropyle that this guy enters into the embryo sac. All right. Then we have the synergies. They are cells that help guide the pollen tube to the egg cell. Okay, synergies are actually cells. Okay, they guide the pollen tube to the egg cell. They guide the pollen tube to the egg cell. The synergies are the ones that produce those chemical signals. Then they produce chemical signals that guide the pollen tube to the egg cell. Now, the polar nuclei. The polar nuclei is just nuclei is the plural of nucleus. Nucleus. So the polar nuclei are two nuclei in the embryo sac. They are the one that will fuse with the sperm cell. Now, they are the one that will fuse with the second sperm cell. The egg cell, which we saw just now, the egg cell fuse with the first sperm cell, and the polar nuclei. There are two. Is that okay? They are the one that will together fuse with the second sperm cell. All right, and they are the ones that form the endosperm. They form the endosperm. Okay. The next one is antipodals. Now, antipodals are three cells in the embryo sac with unclear function. We don't know their functions as of now, but they are found in the um, they are found within the embryo sac. All right. So one of the reasons why we account for them is because they are there, but we actually don't know their functions as of now. Is that okay? As of now, some sources actually record possible account possible functions to them. Basically, um, you know you see the embryo sac is now the embryo sac has what is called the chalazal pole, and this one is found on one of the ends of the chalazal pole. So you can see it's found on this side of the chalazal pole. Okay, now what antipodal mean is just um, it means it's on opposite side. That's what does the meaning of this word antipodal. It just means it's found on the opposite sides of a particular globe, of a globe. It's found on one end. So it's found on this end here. So that's why it's named that, but the function is yet unclear. Now, the embryo sac is the female gametophyte that is inside the ovule when fertilization occurs. Where fertilization occurs. So fertilization takes place in the ovule, and this is the ovule here. You're going to be seeing here. Okay, so and the embryo sac is the entire, um, you know, is the entire this portion here, this entire portion here inside this place. The gate of the embryo sac is the gate of the embryo sac is the micropyle. Is the micropyle. Okay, so and it is inside the ovule. Is that okay? It is inside the ovule. So that is where fertilization takes place. Okay, and of course we have the megaspore. The megaspore is just a spore that develops into female gametophyte. So it is a spore that turns into the female gametophyte, the ovule. The next one is the microspore. It's one that develops into the male gametophyte, which are the pollen grains. Is that okay? The pollen grains. So then we have so the next one is pollination. Pollination is basically the transfer of pollen from from an anther to a stigma. So if you, and there are two types of pollination. I don't know if I discussed both types. Okay, yeah. So the first one is the self-pollination, which is pollination within the same flower or plant. And the second one is cross-pollination, which is pollination between flowers of different plants, but of the same species. So if you see, if pollen grains gets transferred from here to here, this is the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower, that's cross. Is that okay? And if pollen grains get transferred from the anther of one flower to the stigma of the same flower, then it is called self-pollination, or the stigma of another flower on the same plant. It's still called self-pollination. However, that is from the ecological point of view. In pollination, I covered all of this. So make sure you see that video on pollination. I'm going to link it down in the description below. So we have from the ecological point of view and from the geneticist point of view. Now, from the geneticist point of view, it is called the same. It is self-pollination. If pollen grain goes from one flower to another flower, but on the same plant, it's on the same stalk. But if pollen grain now goes from one flower to no, let me reiterate that. From the geneticist point of view, I've covered that before in my video on pollination. So to be clear on it, do well to watch the video. From the geneticist point of view, the transfer of pollen from anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower but in the same plant is still self-pollination or autogamy. Okay, that's the word I didn't remember to use. Autogamy. Remember the word auto means self, gami means marriage, right? Auto meaning self, gami meaning marriage. Okay, I've told you what gami meant before. So I said that um, this guy, um, sorry, I said I told you what gami means before. So this guy goes from one flower to the stigma of this another flower on the same plant. That's self-pollination from the geneticist point of view, but from the ecologist point of view, it is cross-pollination, and that kind of cross-pollination is called gatenogamy. Is it gatenogamy or gatenogamy? Yes, gatenogamy. 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 I think I covered it here too, so you're going to see what that means basically and how it is pronounced, the spelling and how it is pronounced. So we have cross pollination. Now we have fertilization. Fertilization is basically the fusion of the male and female gametes to form a zygote. Is that okay? Zygote is gotten from the word zygotos, which means product of fusion. Now, double fertilization is now I said it is unique to angiosperms and is where one sperm fertilizes the egg and the other fertilizes polar nuclei to form endosperm, while the one that fertilizes the egg forms zygote, which becomes the embryo. Is that okay? After fusion here, we form the zygote, and the zygote later becomes embryo. And after fusion in the second place, so this is what happens. This is the egg cell here. The first guy will fuse with this guy and form the embryo, the zygote will become the embryo, and then the next sperm cell will fuse with this guy and form the. It will fuse with two polar nuclei actually, so it will form a triploid, which is the endosperm that nourishes the developing seed. Then we have the zygote, which is fertilized egg cell that develops into embryo. Then the endosperm is the nutritive tissue that feeds the developing embryo. Now, as the embryo develops, it feeds, okay, I've mentioned that. As the embryo develops, it feeds on the endosperm. So this is the endosperm here. It's just the food reserve of the embryo. It's the food reserve of the embryo. Now, once the endosperm finishes, then by that time the plant is already capable of photosynthesizing. Is that okay? It's already capable of photosynthesizing. So at that time you see that it will begin to protrude, it will begin to produce leaf, young leaf or buds of leaf that can photosynthesize. Then we have the embryo, which is a young plant formed from zygote. Then we have the seed coat. Now the seed coat is basically the covering of the seeds, the seed. It is a protective outer covering of a seed. It protects it from desiccation primarily. Protects it from desiccation. Okay, now the seed is a fertilized and mature ovule. The seed is a fertilized and matured ovule. Fruit is a mature ovary containing seed. So we've talked about that fact before. Now the seed develops from ovule. Ovule gives rise to seed, while the ovary gives rise to fruit. It's very simple. It's very simple. You're going to see, let me show you something. So this guy here, this guy here is a stigma, you know, and we have the style, and we have our ovary. Okay, these are ovule. Now, you see, this portion here, once fertilization takes place, this portion here becomes the seed. It closes up and becomes the seed. Then this portion here grows bigger and thicker. It grows bigger and thicker and it becomes the, and sometimes other part of the inflorescence grows with it and becomes the fruit. Then the fruit, remember, we enclose the seed. Is that okay? So that is what we mean by fruit becoming, ovary becoming the fruit. Then the pericarp is basically the outer portion of the ovary. The outer portion of the ovary that that encloses the seed. The outer portion of the ovary forms the pericarp. Is that okay? And the pericarp is divided into three. So a typical fruit, you draw a typical fruit like this. So this is going to be the seed, and this is going to be the epicarp. Okay, basically the word peri means surrounding, surrounding, or around. Let's use the word around. It's the same. Is that okay? Peri, I said, means around or surrounding something, and carp is from the word carpos. Carpos, which is a Greek word for fruit. You see, this word peri, just like you hear perimeter, is that okay? Peri means around, meter means measure. So measurement of the surrounding, the border. Okay. So basically in this case, so I'll show you a diagram of a fruit then, of a typical fruit. So it's gonna have a seed inside now, then the epicap, which is the outer covering, is that okay? This is the epicap, this is gonna be the epicap. This is going to be the epicap. This is going to be the mesocap. Meso means epi means outside. Meso means lower, lower than something. Is that okay? More like medium. Is that okay? Then medium. That's like meso. Then endocap, the one inside. Endo means inside. From like endo, endothelium, all those words that, yeah, that you know have endo, um, endothermic reaction, those words, Endo means inside. Is that okay? So seed. So the pericarp is basically these three together. The epicarp, mesocarp, and endocap together, we call them the pericarp. Always remember that. The pericarp contains three parts: endocarp, mesocarp, and epicarp. Then dispersal is basically the spread of seeds away from the parent plant. It could be by an agent such as man or wind. Is that okay? Or wind. So the fruit will just disperse its seed when it has usually in dried form. And there are all different mechanisms for the dispersal. It could be explosive in some. When we see fruit and seed dispersal, we're going to see that. I'll link the video in the description as well. Then we have germination now. Germination is the process by which seed develops into a new plant. It's the process by which the seed will develop into a new plant. Now, there are two types of germination. We have the epigeal germination and the hypogeal germination. Now, in the epigeal germination, you're going to see that um, first, what does epi means? I said outside. So, what does hypo means? Hypo means under. Is that okay? Hypo means under. So, um, so what you're going to see. So what you're going to see here is that the the epigeal germination is one in which the cotyledons actually moves out. The cotyledon moves out of the ground once the seed have on germination, while the hypogeal germination is one in which even after germination the cotyledon remains in the soil. So okay, this is the soil surface that you can see here. So in this case, you see that the cotyledon remains inside. But in this case, the cotyledon moves out. The cotyledon is, so in your biology exams, you hear questions like cotyledon hypocotyl is higher than the, when the hypocotyl is higher than the cotyledon, what would that be? So this is basically the hypocotyl. So the hypocotyl forms the shoot. So this hypocotyl is higher in this case than, let me change that, is higher in this case than the cotyledon, or is above the cotyledon. But in this case, the cotyledon is higher than the hypocotyl. Cotyledon is higher than the hypocotyl. Here, hypocotyl is higher than the cotyledon. So this is hypogeal, and this one is epigeal. Is that okay? That's how to remember. That's how to remember it. Okay. So, um, of course, another way to remember is this. Here we said H is above. So hypogeo is H is above, which is hypocotyl. And epigeo, C is above. So, you can just curve that C into an E. And remember that, cotyledon is above the hypocotyl. So don't forget that. All right, so the next is the radicle. Now, the radicle is the one that forms the root. So we call it embryonic root. The radicle is also called what? The embryonic root. And it has its root word, it has a Latin origin. Is that okay? And the Latin origin is basically radicula. Radicula, is that okay? Radicula is actually diminutive of radix. Is that okay? The radicula is, diminutive of radix. And radix means root. Radix means root. So it's the first part of the seedling to emerge during germination. So, and it grows downward into the soil. Um, the radicle. So in this diagram here, you're going to see this is the radicle here. It grows downward into the, it is the radicle that grows downward into the soil, and is the one that anchors the plant. It becomes the root primarily. So it anchors the plant, absorb water and nutrients. Those are the function of the root. So it is so we can literally call it little root. Little root. Is that okay? And it's the first part to emerge during um, germination. Okay. Now we have the plumule. Now, the plumule is also it also has Latin origin. Basically, it has Latin origin, and the Latin origin is plumula, plumula, which is diminutive of pluma too, or plumber. you know, and this means feather or feather-like. Is that okay? Now, the plumule is what forms the shoot. Is that okay? So we call it the embryonic shoot. It's called the embryonic shoot, and it is the part that will first develop into the stem and leaves. You know, it appears, delicate, very, very fragile, kind of. Is that okay? In the early stages, you understand? So, and it is likely why it is given that name, the name plumule, that is like feather. You understand? So, this is the spelling here, not this. Okay, so that's that. It becomes the shoot. Is that okay? Or stem and leaves as it develops, and this one grows outward. All right. Now, the cotyledon basically is the seed leaf that stores or absorb the food. The cotyledon is the one that stores or absorb the food. So you can see this larger portion, this whole portion here, this this whole portion here is the what? Is the cotyledon. You understand? So it is what the um, it is what feeds um, the developing plant, you know, before it's by the time before it begins to photosynthesize and all of that. So, and you know, it also has a Greek origin, and the Greek origin is cup, cup, cup-like. Is that okay? I really can't remember the word. I think the word is still cotyledon, but what it means is cup-like. So what they mean cup-like is basically the fact that it grows into a C shape. It grows into a C shape. Do you understand? So that's why it's like that. More like a cavity. More like a cavity. So the endospermic seed is a seed that retains endosperm. So and then there is non-endospermic seed. That is, so the endosperm we said is the one that feeds the um, that is the food store. The endosperm we say is the food store. So then endospermic seed is like that of the maize, and of course the non-endospermic seed is that of the um, the endospermic seed is the an example of an endospermic seed is the maize. Is that okay? So then the seed where the endosperm is absorbed during development, that is, during development, in non-endospermic seed, the seed is absorbed. Then another thing is the fact, okay, basically let's just continue to the next one, which is micropyle. Micropyle, the word micro means small. You already know that. What micro means small. And pile, pile means pile means gate. Pile. It means gate or entrance, or any such word that you can remember means or opening. Is that okay? So basically, it means small opening. It means small opening. And we say it's the opening in the ovule where the pollen tube enters. So inside the ovary, so if this was the ovary here, it's going to continue upwards to the style there. So there's going to be a part here where the pollen tube will enter through. So that opening there is called the micropyle. It's called the micropyle. All right. The next one is the funiculus. Now, the word funi actually means rope. The word finis actually means what? Rope. So, and so we say it is a stalk. So it is a stalk that attaches the ovule to the ovary wall. It is the one that attaches the ovules to the ovary wall. All right. For it's the one that makes placentation possible. The funiculus. Funiculus. Actually, funny means rope. Is that okay? And just like we said, funis is rope and kulos is cord. Is that okay? Cord. So basically, it's still saying the same thing. So then the placenta is the part of the ovary where ovules are attached. Okay? So the placenta is the part where ovules are attached. And then we have the inflorescence, is just talking about when you hear the word flora, flora refers to plants. Is that okay? Why fauna refers to animal? So inflorescence simply means a cluster or a group of flowers. Inflorescence means what? Flowers or a um, flowers that are arranged on the stem. Is that okay? Then we have the unisexual flower. Unisexual flower is just a flower that contains only the male reproductive system or only the female reproductive system. What that means is only the stamens or only carpels, but never both. Example is the papaya plant. Example is the papaya plant. Bisexual flower, which are flowers with both stamens and carpels. The bisexual flowers are the ones that have both the male and female reproductive structures. An example is the hibiscus flower. Example is the hibiscus flower or hibiscus flower. Hibiscus. Okay. Then we have the complete flower is one that has sepal, petal, stamen, and carpels. It has everything that you need. So we call it a complete flower. Incomplete flower is one that lacks one or more floral parts. We call it the incomplete flower. A pollinator is basically an agent that helps in the transfer of pollen grain. It's either the bee, or insects such as bee or butterfly, or wind itself, or birds or man itself. Okay, so since they help in one way or the other to transfer pollens from the anther to the stigma, we call them pollinators. Then we have entomophily is an insect pollinated the process by which insects pollinate a plant. Is that okay? A flower. So we say pollination by insect. The word ento actually refers to insect. Insect. Then we have anemophily. So entomophily is insect pollination or pollination by insect. Then is Anemophily is pollination by wind. Anemophily is pollination by wind. Okay. In fact, the word anemo, just like we have in anemometer, you've heard the word anemometer before. It's used to measure the direction of anemometer. Okay. Let me write this again. Anemometer. What am I writing? Okay, I was even going to write anemophily basically. Phily means attraction, the word philos or phili. So when you hear filio means love. Is that okay? While phobia means hatred. Is that okay? Filio. So anemo means wind. Is that okay? Anemometer is used to measure the um, wind vane is direction of wind. So anemometer is the speed of wind. Is that okay? So wind, that's anemo, means wind. Okay? Then entomorph, that is the one that is insect pollinated, while animal is the one that is what? Um, the one that is. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Hydrophily, hydro means water, and lichen water, so pollinated by water. Of course, those are aquatic plants that be aquatic flowering plants, so aquatic angiosperms. Is that okay? So, and we have seed dormancy. Now, it's a period when seeds do not germinate despite favorable condition. Seed dormancy. It could be or different. It could be alteration in hormones or environmental conditions to sometimes causes seed dormancy. So, one of the ways by which seed dormancy has been, is being, would I say, not removed, the way it is being, um, the problem of seed dormancy. The problem of seed dormancy, one of the way by which it is being overcome is what we call vernalization. Is that okay? So, the process is called vernalization. How do you spell that? That would be vernalization, right? Yes, okay. So, So the word vena, the word venalization actually comes from Venus. Is that okay? Venus. Is that okay? And that means springtime. Do you understand? Spring, you know. And when you hear Asian, basically means process or action, right? So the process of making something ready for the springtime. Is that okay? So um, now it's actually a process of induction. You induce the plant, the flowering plant. Do you understand? To um, you induce its flowering process. You cause it to begin to flower. That is vernalization. Okay, that we'll see that after this. That's seed dormancy. Then viability is the ability of a seed to germinate. If a seed, so for example, you plant like three seeds of or four seeds of a particular plant. Now it might not be all the four seeds that will germinate. So if you plant four seeds, you might see only three stalks appearing. So it means that only three of those four seeds are actually viable. The other one is non-viable. Now, hormonal control is regulation of plants processes by hormones like auxin and gibberellin. Remember, these are the growth hormones of the plant. Basically, the chief hormone of the plant is auxin. Then this one also helps in the growth of the stem. Is that okay? Or of the shoot in young plants. So that's the gibberellin. The auxin, overall growth and development of the plant. Then the photoperiodicity. Photo means what? Light. And period. You know what period means? Is in process. So photo means what? Response of plants to length of day and night. Is that okay? To the length of day and night. Venerization. So as I said the word Venus means what? Springtime or spring, right? So we said is the induction of flowering by cold temperature. So we use cold temperature so that it will begin to flower um, in the spring. Is that okay? So then apomixis, or how do you pronounce it? Apomixis, anyway. Now the word apple is gotten from the word apple, excuse me. The word apple refers to a way from or a way. Is that okay? So you remember in the last class we were talking about aposomatic coloration, right? So apple, I told you means away or push away. Is that okay? Then soma, body. So the same way, apple mixes. Mixes here will mean like mix, just to mix something. Is that okay? Or coming together or something. So it's just a term that it's a form of asexual reproduction. Is that okay? The seeds are produced without fusion of gametes. Do you understand? You understand? So, and because of that, the offsprings will look like the male, the parent, basically. It's just formation of seeds without fertilization. Now, parthenocarpy is another term that we should see. Parthenos, I've told you, the word parthenocarp is going from the word parthenos, and I've told you that parthenos means virgin. So we call it virgin birth. Is that okay? Carp from the word carpos, which means fruit. Is that okay? That is virgin fruit. You know, that's the literal meaning, virgin fruit. So that is the The fruit forms without any seed formation. And an example is banana, you see that, or pineapple. Those guys are parthenocarpic fruits. Is that okay? That's fruit formation without fertilization. Now we have the vegetative propagation. It's just what? Asexual reproduction using vegetative parts of the this thing, like the stem. Such as we see in cassava. In cassava, you can easily just take any part of the cassava plant, break it, and do what? Insert into the ground, and the guy begins to grow. So that is vegetative propagation. Androecium, like I said, andro. Anywhere you hear the word andro refers to what? Male. Is that okay? Is that okay? And gene, the word gene I said refers to female. So that's why you hear misogynist, means someone that he hates female. And the opposite of that, what? Misandrist. Misandrist. Which is of course bad. You shouldn't be a misogynist or a misandrist. So the word andre there refers to what? Male. Refers to male. Okay, so the androecium is a collection of what? Collection collective term for all stamens. Okay, yeah, the collective term for all stamens is the androecium, while the collective term for all carpels or pistils is gynoecium. Gynoecium. Now, the syncarpous ovary, syn, the word syn means together or fuse. Yes, the word syn also means to fuse. Syn means to fuse, okay, or means together. That's why we hear fertilization also means syngamy. Is that okay? Gamy means marriage, syn together or fusion. So married together, kind of. Is that okay? So syncarpous, that is fusion of fruit. Does that make sense? But basically, yes, since the fruit is formed from the ovary, fruit arises from ovary. Fruit is from the ovary, right? Since the fruit is from the ovary, then we can say that syncarpous. And carpos means, the word carpos means fruit. It's the Greek word that means fruit. So what would that mean? It means that what? An ovary that is formed by fusion of two or more carpels. An ovary that is formed by two or more what? Carpels. That is fusion, togetherness of two or more carpels. Okay? Then the next one is apocarpus. Apo means away. Is that okay? So an ovary with what? Separate or unfused carpels, such as we find in the buttercup. Then the next one is superior ovary. And the superior ovary is an ovary that's attached above the point of attachment of other floral parts. So what that means is that if I have my petals like this, that are attached here, and my ovary is sitting just above them, we call it the superior ovary. Very simple. The superior ovary. This is the ovary here. But the inferior, just as we have in the mustard plant. Now, the inferior ovary is the one that is attached below the point where the fruit are attached. So we call that inferior ovary. So you're going to see what looks like this. The ovary will be somewhat like this. Then the ovary will be here, and of course the style and the stigma here. And you're going to see your other floral part, the petals, appearing to come from somewhere around above it, somewhere around here. So that is going to mean an inferior ovary. Is that okay? Such as we have in the guava plant. Then we have the half inferior. Half inferior is just ovary that is partially embedded within the receptacle. It's not totally embedded. It's partially embedded in the receptacle. Then we have syngamy, fusion of male and female gametes. I've mentioned that before. Triple fusion, fusion of one sperm cell with two polar nuclei to form endosperm. So triple fusion occurs in the double fertilization. Is that okay? Double fertilization. The first male sperm will fuse with the egg cell. Please don't forget that. I keep mentioning this. Will fuse with the egg cell. And the second male sperm will fuse with what? Two polar nuclei. So the two polar nuclei is called triple fusion. The fusion of that one N plus diploid plus 2N. Is that okay? Because there are two polar nuclei, NN. So when they fuse, they become 3N, which is triploid. So that process is called triple fusion. Then we have the Now we have the clistogamy. That is the next word. You see, the word clisto is going from the word clistos. There are two possible spellings. You might see people spell it this way, Clisto. Okay. Actually, the Greek word, when you have words like this, the Greek word will be K, to begin with K. But my point is that this I might be only I in some, if you have seen some textbook that is spelled Clisto is still the same. Is that okay? So we have clistos, and clistos simply means closed. Is that okay? Closed. And I told you gami means marriage. So what does that mean? Literally means closed marriage. Is that okay? And what that means is pollination that is occurring or fertilization that is occurring within closed flowers. Is that okay? So that is a form of self pollination. Do you understand? So the flowers do not open at all. Do you understand? And since they stay closed, cross pollination cannot occur. Do you understand? Cross pollination cannot occur because the flowers are closed, and then fertilization will occur within the same flower, so that uh, the reproduction, you know, so that reproduction still occurs even in the absence of pollinators. Do you understand? We have in viola, examples are the viola plant, peas too, peas, and of course some grasses. Some grasses also, are clistogamous. Now, the next one is casmogamies. Casmogamy. Now, the word casma is the opposite of clistos. So, casma means what? If clistos means close, what will class casma mean? To me, what? Open. Is that okay? Or a gap. Do you understand? It means open or a gap. Is that okay? What that means what? Means that literally, what it literally means what? Open marriage. Is that okay? So, and it simply talks about the production of flowers that open fully. The flowers open fully, so they are exposed to they expose their reproductive parts for cross pollination. So cross pollination is possible, and it is the normal mode of flowering that we see in most plants, such as in rose, hibiscus, sunflower, etc. Where pollinators like insect and wind can usually help to transfer the pollen from the anther to the stigma. Then geitonogamy is just pollination between different flowers of the same plant. So I have told you now, according to an ecologist, the geitonogamy is a is the same is the same as autogamy. No. From the ecological point of view, is a form of cross pollination. Is a form of cross pollination. Cross pollination is also called allogamy. Is that okay? In fact, there's this word geiton, Geiton, actually means neighbor. It actually means neighbor. Okay, so from the ecologist point of view, the cross pollination, geitonogamy is a form of cross pollination. But from the geneticist point of view, since the word actually means neighbor, so and they are on the same plant, it simply means what? They are what? Still self pollination from the geneticist point of view. Okay. Then xenogamy. Xenos means different, so means pollination between flowers of different plants, but of the same species. Then homogamy means maturation of both stamens and carpels at the same time in a flower. At the same time in a flower. And then dichogamy means maturation of stamens at different time. You've heard of the word dichotomous. Dicho actually means two parts, two different parts. Is that okay? Dichos. Then protandry means stamens that mature before the carpels. Okay, so the word protos means early, like protozoa. Is that okay? Early. Is that okay? Then andry, from the word andros, we said male, right? So it means that early male, that is male comes first before the female mature. Then protogeny means early female. Is that okay? The word gene. Do you understand now? So you see, these words are very simple. Carpels mature before the stamens. Autogamy, self-pollination within the same plant. Allogamy. Allos means different. Auto means self. So don't confuse that. Then hercogamy means a mechanical barrier to self-pollination due to structural differences. Now, heterostyly is the presence of different style lengths in the same species to promote cross-pollination when the styles are of different lengths. So uh, because of which the plants cannot pollinate itself. So because so for that reason, cross-pollination is the only open option for that flower. So we have a herbaceous plant. It's just a plant with non-woody stems, and usually dies back at the end of growing season. Then we have the perianth. Now, the word peri, we said, means what? Outside, or surrounding, or around, basically. In fact, the word I used was actually around, right? And the word anthos too means anthos, right? It's different from antheros. Anthos means, I told you antheros means blooming, but this one is anthos. Anthos, is that okay? Anthos, which means anthos will mean flower. If antheros means blooming like flower, is that okay? Antheros, from the word anther, from which anther is derived rather. Antheros means blooming like flower, so this one is flower, anthos. So surrounding a flower, that's just the meaning, literally. So it's a non-reproductive part of the flower, including the petals and the sepals. So what do? They surround the flower. They are the non-reproductive part of the flower. We have the hypogynous flower. The hypogynous flower simply means a flower with what? Ovary above the other part. So that is what? Superior ovary. I'm writing for superior ovary. While epigynous is inferior ovary. Then perigynous is a flower with floral parts around the ovary, which is called what? Half inferior ovary. Alright, so this has brought us to the end of this video. Do well to subscribe to the channel, and I have linked all the videos that you need to understand the plant reproduction series in the description. Do well to watch them. God bless you.